This is the daily video for July 10th. Today we're going to start working in Module 2. And so Module 2 is going to be pretty different from Module 1. In Module 1 we focused on the ways that information is presented to us and how we make inference or the things that we conclude based on the information that's given to us. In Module 2 we're actually going to start making statistical inference. In other words, we're going to start looking at analyzing data using statistical methods. And so if you've had statistics before, what we do in this module is probably going to be more similar to what you've seen in your previous statistics courses. Now what we're going to focus on today is before we can ever start to analyze data, we need to look at some ways that data is collected. And one of the most common ways that data is collected is through surveys. And so we're going to look a lot at survey data in this course, and that's going to be one of the types of data that we're going to show you how to analyze. Now before we can do that, one thing that's really important to understand to learn is the analysis or the work that you do with data is really only as good as the data itself. And so in other words, if I collect data from an absolutely terrible survey, it doesn't matter what I do with that data. I can never get a meaningful analysis out of it. I have to first distribute a good survey and collect what's called good data before I can ever do an analysis on it. And so what we're going to look at today are how surveys are designed and how to design a good survey. And so the first exercise you look at today is actually going to be a long survey that was written by a sociologist, and this survey basically has everything wrong with it that could possibly be wrong. It has offensive questions, the format's terrible, it has questions that are just all over the place. And so what you're going to do is look at this really bad survey and try to identify, a number of reasons why it's bad. And then once identifying bad things, talk about, okay, well, what can we do to make these questions good? What are some things that should be changed? And it's been my experience that, it's a lot easier for students to look at a bad survey and figure out what we can do to make it good than to just jump in and start talking about what just in general a good survey should have. So that's going to be the first exercise. The next exercise is going to look at how the wording in a survey can have a large impact on how people respond to a survey. And so it's very important to be careful when actually writing a survey and the way that the wording is done, because that can really influence the data that's collected from a survey. And then the very last thing you're going to look at is what are called push polls. Push polls are a type of poll that are given out, and it's generally during election times. So since the presidential election will be coming up here soon, you may actually see one of these in the real world. And what you're going to find is push polls are basically a marketing tool that are in the guise of a survey. The data from these surveys are never actually analyzed. It's a survey that's put out there more to change people's opinions, and it's because they use these biased questions. And so the data, basically the people that give out these surveys act like they're collecting data for some purpose, but they're really not. They're just trying to promote their own ideas. And so that's going to be the last exercise you look at, is an example of something that looks like it's trying to collect data, but really it's not. Now eventually when we get to where you're working on Beyond the Class 2, you're going to have to write your own survey. And so this is one of the reasons today is so important, to kind of look at and get an understanding of how survey questions should be worded and why the construction of a good survey is important, so that we can get good data that we can later on learn how to analyze. So as always, if you have any questions, feel free to use the discussion board. I will be around, and I will talk to you later.